For so many of us, online gaming is it's a blast. It's where we find community, where we compete, where we just unwind. But let's be real, we've all been there in that one lobby, on that team, where things just take a really sharp turn. You hit that darker side, the anger and frustration, what we all just call toxicity. So today, we're going to pull that whole idea apart and really see what's going on underneath.
Okay, so this is the big question, right? Why do these amazing virtual worlds get so, well, toxic? On the surface, it seems kind of simple. People are just having a bad day. But the real answer? Oh, it's way more complex than that. This isn't just about a few sore losers. The causes are actually woven deep into how games are designed, the psychology of why we even play them, and, believe it or not, the economics of going pro.
When you really boil it down, online gaming is built on this really fascinating tension. We log on to connect with people, right? To be part of a team, a guild, a community. But at the same time, almost every game we play is built around conflict. You've got to outsmart, outplay, and beat your opponent. And it's right in that gap between our need for connection and our drive for conflict that toxicity finds the perfect place to grow.
So what do we even mean when we say toxic? Well, researchers use it as this big catch-all umbrella term. It covers the whole shebang. Everything from, truly awful, hateful harassment in the chat, all the way to in-game stuff like griefing or cheating. Basically, anything that's designed to deliberately ruin the experience for somebody else. It's a whole spectrum of harmful behavior.
All right, let's start at the very, very top of the gaming pyramid, the world of professional esports. Because when gaming stops being just a fun hobby and becomes your actual 9-to-5 job, the pressure and the stakes, well, they change everything.
I mean, we are talking about a massive global industry here. When you've got revenues pushing $1 billion and an audience that's bigger than the Super Bowl, you're not just playing games in your basement anymore. This is a high-pressure, super high-visibility workplace. We're talking careers, salaries, and huge sponsorships all on the line.
And inside that digital workplace, the problem is absolutely rampant. A 2024 study surveyed 145 pro and semi-pro players from all over the world, and the results, they are staggering. Almost 96% had experienced cyberbullying in the last year. That's not an exception. That's just the baseline. It's what you're expected to deal with.
So the researchers went in with a pretty logical theory, which you can see in this model here. They figured, okay, the more professional a player is, the more cyberbullying they're probably going to face. And they also predicted that being a woman in this scene would lead to more cyberbullying and harassment. Seems pretty straightforward, right?
But here's where it gets really interesting. Look at how the actual data told a much more specific and honestly a more troubling story. The solid lines, those show the really strong connections. So your level of professionalism, huge predictor of general cyberbullying. But here's the twist. Being a woman wasn't. Instead, identifying as a woman was a powerful, direct predictor of one very specific type of abuse, sexual harassment. And that's a really critical and frankly sobering distinction to make.
So, let's just break that down nice and clear. First, the more that gaming is your actual job, you stream, you compete, you earn money from it, the more general abuse you're going to face. Period. Second, women in gaming are being specifically and disproportionately targeted with sexual harassment. And third, both of these toxic behaviors are strongly linked to a serious decline in mental health.
And this really gets to the heart of what that study found. It totally reframes the problem. This isn't just gamers being mean online. No. For professional players, this is a clear and present workplace hazard. The virtual arenas they work in are fundamentally unsafe, and they lack the basic protections that we would absolutely demand in any other industry.
Okay, so that's the pressure cooker at the pro level. But let's zoom out a bit and look at a specific type of toxicity that can happen to anyone in any game: griefing. Now we're shifting away from what's being said in chat to what players are actually doing in the game world itself. So, what even is griefing? Well, simply put, it's the art of intentionally ruining someone else's fun. You know the type. It's the player who repeatedly kills their own teammate, the one who blocks the only door out of a room, or the person who destroys the amazing castle you just spent 12 hours building. For a griefer, winning isn't the goal. Making you miserable is. Now, to really get why griefing feels so uniquely awful, we've got to take a quick look at some psychology. There's this framework called self-determination theory, or SDT, and it's perfect for this. It basically says that for any activity to feel rewarding and good for us, it has to feed 3 basic human needs we all share.
And these are the three pillars. You've got autonomy, which is your sense of control. Then there's competence, that feeling that you're actually good at something. And finally, relatedness, which is feeling connected to other people. Now think about it for a second. Video games are absolute masters at giving us these feelings. That's a huge part of why we love them so much.
But then griefing comes along and just takes a sledgehammer to those pillars. A study on RPG players measured exactly how this works. And just look at this data. For players who are regularly griefed, more than half of them report a massive drop in their sense of autonomy. Their feeling of control is just ripped away. And almost half feel a drop in relatedness. That feeling of community just gets shattered.
So here's the bottom line. Griefing cuts so deep because it's like a surgical strike on the very psychological reasons we find games fun in the first place. It takes an experience that's designed to make you feel powerful, skilled, and connected, and it viciously flips it into one where you feel powerless, frustrated, and totally isolated. All right, for our last stop, let's look at one of the most common and maybe one of the most controversial behaviors in competitive games, smurfing. Because this is where the lines between what's toxic, what's strategic, and what's just normal get incredibly blurry.
So first, what is it? Smurfing is when a really skilled player makes a brand new account. The game's matchmaking system sees this fresh account and thinks, a total beginner. And then it puts this expert player into games against actual newcomers who, well, they just get absolutely steamrolled.
Now, you'd probably think this is some fringe thing that only a few jerks do, but nope. Research from Ohio State found that a shocking 69% of people who play more than 24 hours a week readily admit that they smurf. It is way, way more widespread than you'd think.
And this is where it gets so messy. Because those same players, they have a whole list of justifications for it. They'll argue, oh, it's not bad all the time, or that they do it for good reasons. Like maybe they want to play casually with their lower-ranked friends, or they want to try out a new character without risking their main account's rank.
I mean, this slide just perfectly captures the contradiction, right? When you ask players about other people smurfing, they almost all say it's toxic, it's unfair. But when you ask them about their own smurfing, suddenly it's complicated. It's a classic case of, it's different when I do it. And it shows just how messy our community norms really are.
So, we've looked at cyberbullying as a workplace problem, griefing as a psychological attack, and smurfing as this complicated social rule that everybody seems to break. So let's try and pull all these threads together. What does this all really mean?
Well, what becomes super clear is that toxicity isn't just one thing. It's this huge spectrum of behaviors. In the world of esports, it's a serious workplace safety issue. In the game itself, with griefing, it's a direct assault on the very feeling of fun. And with smurfing, it's this confusing social norm that we hate in other people but often excuse in ourselves. So, the biggest takeaway here, context is everything.
At the end of the day, these digital spaces are so much more than just games now. There are social hubs, there are workplaces, our communities, they matter. And knowing just how complex these problems are, it leaves us with the most important question of all. What's it going to take from developers, from platforms, and from us, the players, to build a better, safer, and more rewarding online worlds that we all really deserve?